All right. Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with a great another podcast. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for always supporting the show. The numbers are jumping. We've just had a quadruple the amount of downloads coming down, so we certainly appreciate you guys. Love every one of you guys. You're rock stars. Be sure to share the show with your friends, neighbors, relatives, dogs, cats, mistresses, pool boys. Get everybody in on the action. Share the show with them. Tell them to go to iTunes, Google Play, and subscribe to the show. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Hit that bell notification. That's really important so you don't miss a show, because you don't want to miss all the great guests we have on the Chris Voss Show. Go to patreon.com/Chris Voss and support the show there. You get some of the private Facebook groups. I have a excellent guest that I've actually been trying to get on for a while. I was trying to reach her, actually. And she's awesome. It is Sue Scheff. She's an author, parent advocate, and cyber advocate. And she's concerned with helping parents help other parents and promoting awareness of cyberbullying and other issues. She's the founder and president of Parents Universal Resource Experts Incorporated, PURE. And she's made 3 books, so she's an accomplished author as well. Welcome to the show, Sue, and how's it going?
Everything's going great. Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome sauce. I was really excited about your recent book. I've been seeing my friends talk about it online and sharing it. And, cyberbullying, I'm a YouTuber. I've been on the internet for a long time as well. I'm just battle scarred from cyberbullying, especially being, fat shaming for someone of my size. I've been told to jump in a lake more than times than not. So I've been really interesting to see what your research has done and how you're using it. So give us some background and maybe start out by giving us your links, if you would, please, so people can look you up and let's chat.
Well, they can find all 3 of my books on SueScheff.com, and that's Sue, S-U-E, and then S-C-H-E-F-F, like Frank.com, and all 3 of my books are there. And Chris, what's really interesting is when you say the word cyberbullying, because not all of it is always cyberbullying. People are out there just to be cruel. Over the past year, in Civility in America did a survey. 84% of us have actually been shamed or attacked online. 73% of us have witnessed online hate and actually have done nothing about it, while 41% of us have been victims of it. And cyberbullying is when someone continuously attacks you. These trolls out there, so many of us have this vision that trolls are morally bankrupt people. And that's not necessarily true, because research came out last year from Stanford University that any one of us can wake up having a bad day, or just under the right circumstances, start using our keyboards in a malicious way. So those people that are throwing insults at you or on a smear campaign simply don't like you, or possibly jealous of you, or, like I like to say, hurt people hurt people. In other words, they have their own set of issues. So it's not always necessarily cyberbullying like what we see in schools, on the playground, or in the school bus, etc.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, I've looked at it from a lot of different points of view, like I'm sure you really have, because you've done the research. So it's a pass between something that's broken with our society and us as a whole, as individuals. I saw this thing one day. I think it was a video somebody made of a mock-up of one person is rude to one person, and then the next time that person is so triggered by the rudeness and meanness of someone else that then the next person they meet, they're mean too, and then that person is mean, and it just kind of keeps going around. And it was just kind of a demonstration or meme as to how negativity and angry and hatredness spreads and infects our world.
It's a domino effect. But I think we have a huge misconception to believe that the cruel people out there are either sociopaths or mentally ill, or any of those descriptions. Because when I was attacked back in 2003, I was attacked by a woman. This woman was a mother, she was a wife, and she actually had a really good job. She was a professional, but she was on a vendetta. She didn't like me. She was actually a disgruntled client. And what people need to remember is that anyone at any time can go out there and say anything they want about you online, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Fortunately for me, this woman crossed the lines when it came the difference between, and I'm not a lawyer, like the best lawyer out there, which you and I both know, is Mitch Jackson when it comes to social media law and what you can and cannot say, which he was so generously gave his time. He's an expert contributor in my book of Shame Nation. But when it comes to online, people have this false sense of they can say whatever they want. And this woman soon found out that the things that she said about me online were not only false, they were defamatory. So I was able to sue her for defamation. Now, back in 2003, people didn't know a lot to use anonymity. In other words, to be anonymous. And she used her full name, so I knew who she was. So I was able to sue. But what it did to me back in 2003 and what it's doing to people still here in 2018 is it's destroying lives. Because by 2006, I was both emotionally and financially crippled. And I know a lot of people out there today are struggling through the same thing. Because what keystrokes can do to me, like what they've done to you yourself emotionally, like you said, it destroys you emotionally, but financially too. Because what this woman did to me is she started this smear campaign, and sort of like what you were saying with the domino effect, it's called the gang-like mentality. And what we called them back then, because trolls wasn't even coined a name yet back in 2003, if you think way back then, cyberbullying wasn't even coined yet. So we called them minions. And they didn't even know me. And this is the worst thing. I'm sure it's happened to you too. And people start insulting you. They don't even know why they're doing it, but they're watching everyone else do it. And again, I had to hire an attorney, and I filed an internet defamation case. It ended up being one of the very first landmark cases for internet defamation that I won in 2006 in the state of Florida. The jury awarded me an $11.3 million jury verdict for internet defamation and invasion of privacy for what she had done to me. No, I did not collect it. It was only on paper, not like I won the lotto, but it did vindicate me. But the important thing everyone needs to remember here is even though Lady Justice cleared my name, the internet never forgets. And this is why online shaming, cyberbullying is so deadly to the emotional parts of everyone out there, including yourself, because we wear it around our shoulders. We wear it on our shoulders through the days that we walk. And it hurts because technology has given bullies and people a larger platform. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is how it's destroying businesses too. Because when people would Google me as an educational consultant helping other families with their troubled teens, all they would see is Sue Scheff is a crook. Sue Scheff abuses children. Sue Scheff places kids in risky programs. That was my persona. That was my online reputation for the first 3 pages of Google for 3 years. So I had to close my office. I nearly lost my career. It was devastating. Luckily for me, in 2006, the very first online reputation company opened its doors. If you can believe, that was back in 2006. No one even heard of ORM in 2006 until Michael Furtick came on the scene. And I was one of their very first clients. And to this day, I will tell you that my lawyer vindicated me, but it was online reputation management that gave me my life back.
Wow. Yeah, it's cyberbullying is a huge thing. I mean, on YouTube, I've been told that, I reviewed a product, and back in the early days when I wasn't very good at it, I've had a couple of people that have said, you need to commit suicide. Your life is worthless because that review sucked. But literally the value of my life, in their opinion, was the quality of some video I put on YouTube, which is a bit of irony. I've been fat shamed all over YouTube, all over the internet. Even when I started doing reviews that didn't feature me in the video, but my hands, where I was just doing a countertop review and really only people are seeing the product in my hands. I've had so many people write in, you have fat fingers, you must be fat. I mean, it's just insane. And I think part of it comes from the psychology of we think like there's things that we wouldn't say to each other in person, in human. And there's that paradigm in cars. We kind of feel like we're in our own little tank and we can rage and be angry at people and talk smack or honk at them and be, you know, in traffic and kind of be rude to people and say stuff that we might not otherwise say. A lot of road rage sort of issues. One thing that happened to me with my channel on YouTube was I made this funny video about a place here in Las Vegas where you could go down there, and if you weigh 350 pounds, you get a free burger and food. And they make this, the place is kind of like a tourist trap sort of entertainment place. They make these giant burgers and shakes, and they have IVs. They're not really IVs, but they look like IVs that will pour wine. You can suck up the wine off an IV bag. You know, it's got this whole, it's called the Heart Attack Grill. It's this whole sort of eating restaurant. And so I went down there and did a video because I thought it'd be funny. And, you know, I'm a funny guy, and fatness is part of my funny, and did a video. Well, once I put that video on the forefront of on the front page of my YouTube as like, subscribe to this channel, my subscriptions went dead for like a year. No one wanted to subscribe to me. And interestingly enough, as soon as I took that video down, I just put up one of my reviews that didn't feature me, the subscriptions started coming again. And so there's a lot of discrimination and fat shaming and just meanness that's out there.
It's cruelty. See, there's a difference between, you know, meanness is almost like a softer word, but when people hear cruelty, it's harsh, it's malicious. We call them cyber bullets even. And Shame Nation, I packed it with true stories. We actually interviewed over 25 contributors from around the globe. And the story that you're just sharing with me about your fat shaming, we interviewed Galette Bryn, and she wrote a story about her 12 steps to a good marriage. And she happened to post a photo of her and her husband. Galette is a bit overweight, and more than a bit, but all people could focus on, not the 12 steps of marriage, which was it was a really great article. It was her photo. They were calling her a heifer. They were calling her every name, on, just like you were saying, under the book. It was a horrifying, the trolls that attacked her. It was in a Huffington Post article. This was several years ago. The cruelness, she actually went into like hibernation. She was so hurt and so destroyed emotionally. But you know what? It was like 2 or 3 months later, probably like yourself, where she finally stood up on her own 2 feet, fought back, then wrote a article. I can't remember if it was for, I don't remember, like Vanity Fair, somebody really big. And then the Today Show picked it up. And you know what? She took all that hate and all that animosity that she felt and turned it around. And this is what, again, I filled Shame Nation with all these stories of hope and inspiration of people that were really down and could have really taken it another way. The one thing I want people to understand is my second book, Google Bomb, that came out right after I won the landmark case, because when I won that case for internet defamation, I have to tell you, thousands of people reached out to me that were silently suffering from online shame, because it wasn't talked about back then. It was like a very quiet, like what you're going through, being fat shamed. People didn't know about it. People didn't talk about it a lot, and we silently suffered with it, quietly suffered with it, I'll say. So I had teachers contacting me that were being shamed by students, principals that were being shamed by students and fired from their jobs because they're not able to prove what's right or wrong, lawyers, doctors, etc. And they wanted to know, what's the legal roadmap? How do you get out of this? And that's what my second book, Google Bomb, was all about. But then what happens is by 2010 and by 2013, exactly what you're going through, or what Galette Bryn went through, the emotional destruction that this shaming does to people. We read the headlines of Tyler Clemente, who jumped from the George Washington Bridge. We read the headlines of Amanda Todd, who hung herself after leaving that YouTube video. Do you remember Amanda Todd's YouTube video? I guess you don't remember that.
I didn't see stuff like that, and I kind of shirk away from it because I can't mentally.
Well, Amanda Todd, there's Rebecca Sedgwick, there's Audra Potts, all these young people. The difference between them and you and I, Chris, is about 20 years, 30 years. We had the maturity to know that it's going to get better. These young people don't. So that then when they are cyber humiliated to death, it's called bullycide. We actually have coined a name for all these young people that are dying because they're cyber humiliated to death. And that's why we really have to make a shift in this culture. Again, like I said, Civility in America has done this survey where online hate is just climbing at an all-time rate. And it's really up to us. Researchers actually predict that it's only going to get worse over the next decade. You see, cyberbullying and cyber harassment is created by us. It's created by mankind. We interviewed Dr. Michelle Borba, a leader in the world on bullying. And she even says that this is created by us and it needs to be turned around by us. So we can't sit back and wait for scientists to find a cure for it. They're not going to. And shows like yours, shows like Mitch Jackson, who go out there and create awareness, go out there and show people, listen, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We're going to be upstanders. When we see this online hate, we're going to do something about it.
I'm wondering, I know a lot of it is based on our egos and our psychology. I remember someone started trolling me on Twitter, and they were just being mean and nasty over a subject. I don't know if it was a political subject. It was some sort of subject. And they were just being viciously mean, and it seemed really for like no reason at all. It was like they were stretching it. And so I wrote them back, and I'm like, why do you need to behave the way you're behaving? I mean, there's no reason for you to be a jerk. And he replied back, well, this is what Twitter is. Twitter is trolls, and everyone trolls each other. This is what Twitter's for. And I'm like, no, that's not what Twitter is for. You're misinformed as to what this platform is about. It's not a troll platform where we all just hate on each other. It's not like a what's that thing the celebrities do where they hate on each other for comedy. And his perception of Twitter was that that's actually what it's for, is to troll and be ugly to each other. And so I actually turned him around, and he apologized. And I said, this is actually a forum where a lot of great things can happen. The Arab Spring, freedom of information, speed of data and knowledge that's happening in our world. This is a great platform that can be used for good, but you're using it for evil. And it was interesting to me that he had linked up into his mind the expectation or that the sole purpose of Twitter was to be hateful.
Right. In Shame Nation, in chapter 6, we have 6 ways to respond to trolls. And you just named number 6. I would say number 4 is called the humanizer. You humanized a troll. You put out to him and had him look at himself in the mirror, actually, because he actually probably didn't realize that what he's doing was cruel. We have number 5 was an empathizer, where Carol Todd actually addressed her troll, that her troll actually told her to go kill herself. You killed your daughter, now I want you to go kill yourself. And so she said, do you realize who you're talking to? So this is what we've done in Shame Nation, because I addressed this, and we gave 6 different ways that you can respond to haters. So it's really important. I think that's a great way what you did. And you're very secure in yourself to be able to do that. And we have the fighter. Some people out there will go out there and attack their troll back. I should say, I don't mean in a vicious way, but in a confident way. I do like, there was another one, I'm trying to think of the name of the person that would go out there, Jen Royal. I don't know if you know her. She was a ESPN sportscaster.
No.
She used to go out and she would read the bios of the trolls that were attacking her and find out more about them and say, wow, hey, I wonder how your 3 girls would feel about what you're saying about me online.
I remember seeing her do that. Yeah. I remember somebody doing that online.
Yeah. So those are other ways. So it's really important to figure out how to address the troll. And of course, there's always the blocking and the muting. I feel that blocking and muting is just a Band-Aid, because if you are being attacked and somebody's attacking you and your business, you really need to know what's going on in case you do have to send them a lawyer letter. What I tell people all the time is be diligent, and you don't want to read that crap all the time. So have a friend, do block them or mute them so that it doesn't have to emotionally drain you, but have a friend monitor it for you.
Yeah, most definitely. I found Zen, and I actually did go through a suicidal period where I was, I'd reached a height of, I think, about 375 pounds. And I was suicidal. And I was drinking, and I just felt really trapped with my weight. And yeah, a lot of those tweets that I got and ugliness that I got on YouTube comments did not help at all. Did not help at all. And fortunately, I got through it. I found a way to lose weight, and that really helped untrap me from where I was. And I was having a lot of issues too with my ego mind just raging. And so I discovered Zen to try and be able to figure out how to manage all my issues. And in my Zen journey, I found that, you know, one of the challenges that people have is our egos have to try and make us better than everyone else. You know, we live in kind of our own private Idaho of our own kingdom, if you will. And so our brains are constantly measuring and going, well, okay, this person is that, and I'm better than them, and I'm here and they're there, and, you know, and all this sort of stuff. And what we're seeing is what you've written and talked about seems to be extending into our politics now, or social media. And maybe this is implicative of a president that arrived through social media and a troll nation on Twitter, if you will, because that's really, years ago, 2009, 2010, we were talking about all the beautiful, wonderful puppies that were going to come out of social media and how it was going to change the world. I predicted that there probably would be a president that would come that would be elected president by using social media as the vehicle to propel them there. But I think maybe we've turned a corner socially, and a very dark corner where, you see, if you look at Trump's approach with his negativity, I mean, just literally trolling Obama for years and years in a very ugly, racist way. And then you see how people voting for him. And of course, you see the bots and the people that are pushing for him using Twitter. And Twitter really is his platform. I mean, he's admitted to that. And so now you see that our politics have turned into this even worse vitriolic cesspool of just anger and hate. We're, as a society, we're at far ends of the spectrum against each other, and our politics have gotten ugly. I'm not sure if I'm not sure what's going to get us to turn around this road and go a different direction.
Well, it's funny. I'm asked this question whenever I go out and speak. It's one of the first questions. I just spoke up in Ponte Vedra last week. The first question, I have any questions? What do you think of our president tweeting? And I answer the same every time. I try not to think about him tweeting. He doesn't concern me with his tweets. What concerns me is the people out there that are liking his tweets, that are validating his tweets, and that are retweeting his tweets. I think that is where our concern should be. I think we've pretty much accepted that I hate to say that, is a cyberbully. I mean, he is a bully behind the keystrokes, and I cannot explain it. I mean, I have no answers for anybody out there on it. I mean, it's cruel. I mean, it's beyond mean. It's cruel what he does. I've written many articles about the tweets when he did it to Micah on the Morning Joe show, what he did to her. I mean, we could go down so many lists. There's been surveys out there. He's the biggest cyberbully on Twitter.
Yeah.
But again, my concern is for the parents that are liking it, for the people that are retweeting it. And trust me, Chris, you've seen them. How many times have they retweeted? Tens of thousands of times. And then I look at the memes that people put on Facebook, endorsing these tweets. My opinion is hate perpetrates hate. So we have this culture of cruel. We have this my phonetics have diversive culture. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Right. And everybody, and it's just getting crueler, meaner, more divided. We're all divided. First of all, it was the worst political field ever. I mean, I sit here. I never like to get political. I don't like to talk politics. I didn't like either one of the candidates. I will tell you that right up front. I'm a Democrat. If anybody wants, whether I don't care if you're on the left side or the right side. I like to vote for the person. I didn't like either one of the people, so I can say very objectively that I hated all the hate. I hated the hate for her. I hated the hate for him. I didn't like seeing any of the memes. And I think any adult out there, whether you were a Hillary supporter or a Trump supporter, when you hated on Hillary or when you hated on Trump, you hated, period. And you added to the culture of cruel. That's my opinion. And I think as an adult and as a parent, it's okay to disagree. It's okay not to like somebody, but do it constructively, because you're going to be heard if you do it constructively. And if you don't know how to do that, give yourself permission to click out. Show yourself as a role model, not only to your children, but to other people around you. Because you know what? Your online behavior is a reflection of your offline character. It's that simple. You know, if you ever look at any of my Facebooks or anything, you'll never see anything political out there. I mean, if Trump does something, I will write about it in a very neutral way. I just don't want to get down. And I think people should be that. There's nothing wrong with venting or showing your feelings, but do it constructively, not combatively.
Is it a thing where we need to, how do we get out of this? Because we just seem like we're on the hot fire to hell with this whole system. And sometimes I've wondered if social media, instead of being that beautiful utopia that we thought it would be, where everyone would, sing Kumbaya and hold hands and, the world would become a better place. It's almost like we've turned.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to tell you how people get out of it. When they start losing their jobs, we're looking at every single week. This one's getting fired for a tweet. This one's getting fired for a careless post. Today, we have over 80% of workplaces today now have social media policies in place. They have actually hired third parties to monitor their employees' social media feeds. If you breach it or cross the lines, they can reprimand or fire you. I mean, we saw it with Julie Briskman just this past fall. And it's not just one or two people anymore. There's people, like, I will see it because I haven't set it up in my Google alerts. There's people every day losing jobs, being suspended from work because of, we just saw the teacher here in Florida. Did you see the teacher here in Florida with the podcast of the nationalist, the white supremacist race? She was a racist teaching in Florida. She's losing her job. What's going to happen is people are going to have to be mindful of their posts, be mindful of their online behavior, because their online behavior is going to cost them their jobs. The costing them their jobs is costing them their financial future. And it goes back to also colleges. It's not just college scholarships anymore, it's college acceptances. We saw what happened to the 10 kids at Harvard last spring. They lost their, after they were accepted, their acceptances were revoked because of what they posted on Facebook. So today, everything you do online is going to have a consequence, and we're watching it turn in that direction, so that every keystroke is going to have a consequence. And I think people are going to start learning about that when it impacts their pocketbook. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I've been seeing something really interesting where it seems like more and more their searches pass. And
yes. And just to add on to that for 1 second, any college out there, the research is in my book too. If they're offering, because I work with parents of troubled teens, and they'll call me up, oh, my child is so great, has great basketball, football, whatever, gymnastics, but they smoke pot. Oh, really? Okay, but they smoke pot. And I'm not condoning one way or the other. Well, do they have any pictures of their kids? Teenagers, they'll post pictures of them at a party or whatever from 3 or 4 years ago. Colleges today, and if they're going up for a scholarship, if they're going to give you any type of significant scholarship, colleges have now hired third parties to do up to 4-year scrubs on social media accounts. And trust me, I don't care how far locked down privacy settings are, you know how Big Brother is watching. They have ways to look at your child's social media feeds back 4 years. So if your child is up for a significant scholarship, he or she may risk it if they were posting any type of photos that show their character less than up to snuff of what a college, expects. I tell people to think of it this way, and Chris, you'll appreciate this. Every company, business, and college looks at you as an extension of their brand online. That's the importance of your social behavior. So if you're a victim of shaming, if you're a victim of revenge porn, if you're a victim of sextortion or anything like that, I have people ask me all the time, how can I safely sext my significant other? The answer, you can't. The statistics show 1 in 3 people will share a sensitive or private image of you without your permission. It's that simple. Your friend today, your boyfriend today, your relationship today could be your foe tomorrow. Even marriages don't last, not all marriages don't last forever. Sorry, passionate about this topic.
And this is why I brought you on, is because you've researched this, the ins and outs of it. How do we turn back towards the positive and using these Twitter tools as a positive means as opposed to a state of ugliness?
Well, it's easy. First of all, I call it common sense, is what I tell people all the time. Everyone ever says, think before you post, think before you post. I say pause, because we can all think and do 2 or 3 things at once before we post. So pause, think twice, post once. Never air your workplace woes. Think about that. Don't get online and start talking about, we had that teacher a couple years ago, I want to just or I want to stab my kids or whatever. Don't post that on social. Yeah, it's in my book. We interviewed. Never assume you're among friends. Now, I did this over Christmas. Weed out, we have our friends, we have our social media friends, we have our virtual friends. When you go to post stuff, especially sensitive information or private information of your friends or family on social media, Chris, you just said, you have friends, they may be envious of you. They may be jealous because you're a very successful man. Be careful. Weed out. Yes, you might be. You don't know. You are. Weed out your friends. Create lists for yourself. Because it's so easy to copy, paste, lift, manipulate. Write as if the world is watching. Because wait till you read some of the stories in there, but especially about this one Harvard professor that made this huge blunder. Be constructive with your comments. Don't be combative. One thing I always tell people too, 15 minutes of humor is never worth a lifetime of humiliation. So if you want to put a joke online, remember it always can be misconstrued, translated in a different way online. So you have to be careful of that. And remember, tempers flare, you get angry. It's only temporary. Emotions are temporary online. The internet lives forever. So basically, it's all about our conduct. It's up to us. This is what I've been trying to say from the very beginning. Everything is up to us. And basically, if you post with care, you're going to be okay. As long as you have empathy for others, I don't think you can go wrong.
Well, is that really what the problem is? I mean, there's a core problem somewhere in here of either what's wrong with us on the inside. It's not just our behavior where I think we have to say, well, I have hatred and anger inside myself, but I should just be careful what I post in line. I mean, shouldn't we deal with the core problem of what the hell is wrong with us? Why do we do this to each other? Why do we lack empathy and caring toward each other in this age of social media? I mean, have we become so disconnected because social media, it's kind of like that example I said where when you're in your car, you feel like you're in this dome of exclusivity where no one can touch me here, and so I can be ugly, mean, and mean to my fellow human, and do things that if I were to meet them in the street face to face, I've had road rage in my youth. I flipped off people. I was angry and there was a couple times where one time I had a guy who was much bigger than me who probably kicked my butt. I flipped him off because he was being stupid on the road, and he actually jumped on his car and was banging on my window trying to get in my car at a stoplight. And that's when I kind of realized things were probably a little out of hand with me. And he contributed, but I had responded. But I mean, is there something wrong with us? I mean, our politics, our whole society online has gotten to this point where we just don't seem to care about each other anymore. We're just all avatars and we're just targets for our anger and hate. I mean, is there something inside of us where we're so angry at low wages for 4 years, the wiping out of the middle class? Is there some sort of thing that's going on inside of us that we're lashing out because of something we're, as a society, unhappy about, you know?
Well, I mean, we have I think what Dr. John Suler has talked about over the past several years with social media is the online disinhibition effect, which you'll read about in the book, you know about it, where you don't say to people what you say things online, which you wouldn't normally say to people eye to eye offline. And that's exactly what's happening, because a lot of these people are taking their anger, exactly what you're talking about, anger over politics, anger over the economy, anger over maybe being a single parent, frustrations over life, stress, anxiety, everything that you're talking about. Maybe they are a victim of shaming themselves. Maybe they just lost their business. They're taking their frustrations out on their keystrokes. Why? Because they can. Like I say all the time, the internet is a new lethal way to actually throw insults at people. I always say, never assume a post can't come back to haunt you, because, again, you can be angry for that moment, but you're going to recover in 24 hours. That's why you should never send out a sensitive email without sitting on it for 24 hours. We do have to, I think the other component we're missing here is the next generation. We have to build up digital resilience with our kids and help them be prepared for this online hate, because I don't think it's going away anytime soon, and help them build up empathy to care for others, to be that upstander. If I see that you're being shamed online, Chris, I should either ping you and say, hey, are you okay? I've got your back. I'm in your corner. Or, we talk a lot, like I said to you earlier, Monica Lewinsky wrote my foreword, and she is just brilliant when it comes to this. Talk about being a victim of online shame. She talks a lot about digital resilience, and one of the ways that she has created a way to come back with being an upstander is her emojis. She has the upstanding bystanders emojis. If you don't have the right words to say to somebody, send them a virtual hug, send them a virtual smile, show them that you're in their corner, because sometimes we don't have the right words. But you know what? An emoji just lets them know, hey, I'm there for you.
I know Monica Lewinsky has suffered a lot. It kind of seems unfair that she continues to pay for a transgression in her youth, and we all make mistakes in our youth. And yeah, I've seen the trolling. I've seen some of her speeches at TED Talks and stuff. And like I say, I like what you said, where we also need to teach our kids empathy. I grew up when I was in a world where I was planning on becoming CEO someday of a company, and I was preparing myself as much as I could. And I remember there was a lady who had written many books, and she counseled many presidents on manners and how to present yourself, how to interact with people. And she written a series of books, and her name escapes me, Beatrice. But she actually worked with a lot of presidents to teach them, protocol of politeness and dealing with dignitaries, and how to do dinners and how to present yourself, and just this modicum of classiness and morals and ethics and presenting well and hosting well and stuff. And I forget her books, but she wrote a bunch of them, not only on dining, but on politics and how presidents and politicians did. And it was interesting to me that there used to be this world where we had a modicum of decency toward each other, a care, a love, empathy. In the 60s, we went to war on poverty so that we could, help people that were poor and disingenuous, that we could support them so that they wouldn't be lost and thrown away as human beings. Now our politics seems to be like, screw those people. We don't care. It's all about making money. And if you can't make money, you're crippled, you're handicapped, you're subpar maybe in your schooling or intelligence, well, then you're throwaway. We don't want to pay for your health care. We don't want anything to do with you. You can just go die in a pit somewhere. And that's kind of how some of our politics and our approach works to our healthcare system, which is very sad. And to see in our politics this disregard for people, this inhumanity for people, you even see it when these school like recently these Florida school children were gunned down, and there's people that are so inhumane, they're mocking them, going, well, those are just actors, and they're not really.
That was just horrible, horrible.
Yeah, and it's horrible. We can't go, my God, can you imagine the experience those people went through and the terror and the horror? I mean, I don't know that I would even be able to function. I'd probably have a full-blown heart attack and meltdown, knowing that my killer.
Where was the empathy for those kids rather than cruelty for those children?
That's why I think, you know, we're missing that. We're missing this empathy and caring for each other. And I don't know how we get back to it. I don't know if we need to start teaching in schools. Parents seem to be failing at it. You know, I know parents are really busy these days. They're doing much more than they would ever have to do in our prior society. A lot of this comes down to 40 years of low job growth and everything else. But even then, we have to take responsibility for how we teach our kids, how we teach our people. We have to take responsibility for self-actualizing ourselves to where we go, hey, am I being a fucking jerk? Or should I, you know, maybe I need to change something. Maybe it's me that's ugly and I need to fix that aside. And I've actually gone through that catharsis with me. There's been times where I've been a bully, where I've been mean or ugly, and sometimes I didn't realize it at the time. Sometimes I thought I was making a joke and the other person didn't like the joke or get the joke, and it turned out to be a little cruel. And, you know, I mean, when I grew up too, when I did something wrong, and my parents, they were pretty tough on us as kids. When I did something wrong as a child, my parents made me get on the phone, or they would march me over to the house of a place and make me apologize to a person. I remember one time I said something rude to a teacher, and man, they made me get on the phone with that teacher and apologize. And I was crying, and I learned my lesson. And they did that enough to me to not scar me. I wasn't scarred. I kind of felt that way, I'm sure, at the time. But it taught me to say I'm sorry, to recognize when I'm wrong, to learn to be a big enough man that when I was wrong, to go, you know what, I was wrong, I'm sorry. And nowadays, it seems like a lot of these kids are taught by these parents who seem to blame everybody but the kid. You know, it's the teacher's fault. You know, my mom as a teacher started seeing this from her parents, where basically she went from just being a teacher to being somebody who was literally just a babysitter, a secondary parent. And no matter what their kid did in school that was the kid's fault, you know, their parents would show up with the kid in tow and, you know, demoralize the teacher, demoralize the principal, and blame them for everything, and, you know, that was wrong with their kid. And their parents just don't take responsibility for any of it. So I think we have a huge failure in our society and we're deeply broken inside of ourselves.
Yeah, no, I hear that all the time from parents that call me. In chapter 10 for Shame Nation, one of the first steps to turning this around is from Dr. Michelle Borba, who wrote Unselfie, Why Empathetic Kids Succeed in Our All About World, which is all about building empathy. And creating empathy is the first step in turning this shame nation to a sane nation, as we like to say, a civil nation. And she talks about her 4-step method of bringing caring back into cyberspace, calling attention to uncaring. In other words, with our kids, you know, it really starts at home, building empathy, showing our kids, leading by example, really, like what you're just saying. We don't blame others. We start at home with showing our kids that we care about other people too. How many of these parents, like I just said to you, the parents that are condoning the president's behavior is not leading by example. However, if a parent is out there and points out, hey, you know what, that's not, even though this person is a person in authority, that's not the way we act. That's not the way we treat other people in this house. Now, let me show you some respectable behavior. It's calling attention to uncaring, assessing how uncaring affects others. And this is stuff that we have to explain to our children at home, face-to-face conversations, and then going online with them, showing them how it's impacting other people. Because this
I don't think parents spend any of that time. I mean, there's no real, we almost need classes in school to say what's the proper, you know, way to, you know, manners. You never hear anybody talking about manners anymore. When I grew up, you know, women and kids went to school for manners. There were books on manners. manners are something that was taught as a thing. Like I said, I used to read a lot of books on manners and behavior and how to present yourself in public and events and different things. And I don't think anybody even talks about manners. Manners seems to be a word I never hear anymore when it comes to anybody. I mean, when you and I grew up, our parents, they beat manners into us. Sometimes the beating was real.
Well, it was funny because when we grew up, we were taught respect. I always say we were taught respect, responsibility. We had accountability. When our parents said to be home at 10, we were home at 10, no ifs, ands, or buts. We never used a 4-letter word. It's a me society today. It's so completely different. But what we do have today, Chris, and a lot of schools are slowly but surely getting them, is cyber civics, the digital literacy classes. And cyber civics is a curriculum that's started in California, and it's slowly spreading. It's in 38 states now, coming across the country, where cyber civics, teaching these kids digital literacy, digital citizenship. It's also, we talk about it. We interviewed Diana Graber in my book about how she teaches the kids proper etiquette, proper digital etiquette, how to address cyberbullying, about trademarking, how not to lift photos, which is really important too. I'm sure you know about this, certain photos that you can't go and reuse. These are great classes that she's taken. She's actually going to be featured on the Today Show, I think tomorrow or the next day. And she's got a new book coming out too. But these are classes that every school needs to have. I know right now in some public schools, a lot of private schools, but there's cyber civics classes. It's cybercivics.com for people that want to look it up. And it's pretty cost effective, but this is what every school across the country needs to have. I know a lot of schools out there are getting rid of PE, from what I remember reading, or getting rid of recess. Put in these cyber civic classes, because this is what the kids need today to learn how to treat each other online.
Yeah, and I think in thinking about it, you mentioned selfies. One of the things that this social media world has taught us is this new level of narcissism. The selfie generation, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's all about us. And I was reading yesterday about how stars and celebrities are lessened in our world and don't seem to have as much power because we've all become our own little celebrity. We're all doing our selfies and taking pictures of ourselves on social media and posting them. And it's all me, and I'm the greatest and I'm the best. And everyone's trying to one each other up with the quality of selfies they're taking and how good they're looking. And, girls are going online on YouTube. I'm not pointing my fingers at girls being the only one to do this. So guys go on and post their money or guns and whatever on social media. Everyone's trying to one up each other in this narcissistic sort of role. And maybe social media has given rise to this sickness in our society where we have this narcissism with this, well, I'm going to write about what I say. And I used to joke about how, did you just assume that people care about what you have to say or think?
Well, how about, did you assume that we care that you ate a donut? I mean, yeah. I don't.
And so I think we need to solve this as a society, and somehow we all got to get together on this. And maybe we won't, because so many of us are broken. So many of us are chasing our tails. There's a lot of parents. I have a lot of empathy for parents. I don't have kids, and I can't imagine having kids. Just from a monetary standpoint of how much my life costs. And I know how hard it is financially for people to have children and raise them in this world. So I certainly have a lot of empathy for them. I know the costs they run into are just extraordinary. Of course, the salary wages have been pretty much not risen for 40 years. I mean, we've lived with that for 40 years now. Well, in the meantime, inflation has gone up, so people are more disingenuous. I remember the movie Fight Club, and there's a line from it that always harkens to my mind over this sort of topic and issue. And in Fight Club, yeah, he makes the comment, we're the first generation who's raised and taught that we all have the potential to become millionaires. we're all finding out that we got lied to, and we're all becoming very angry over it. And I hearken that to think, well, maybe that's where we're at. Everyone thought that we were in this new society and information age where everybody had access to tons of information that normally was exclusive to very rich people, very powerful people. And, you know, now we've had this democratization of information come through social media, and, you know, it's a great kumbaya thing. But maybe between the narcissism and the fact that we're angry, that even though the promise of social media and the promise of these mechanics and freedom of information would change our lives and we'd all become rich and successful and whatever, and that somehow we're just more angry because we're finding that we got lied to, or that the dream wasn't really the dream, you know. So I don't know what it is, but we definitely need to change. We definitely need to become more empathetic. I mean, in politics, when we can laugh and mock children who were slaughtered, gunned down, and then survivors of that, there's something really messed up about where our world is.
Very sick, and it's very sick in our culture when you can do that. I think overall, people need to learn to understand the importance of social sharing for your platform versus oversharing for your ego, is basically what you're saying. And I think what's interesting is when one of the Pew studies came out that said 88% of teenage social media users agree, users agree that adults overshare too much on social media, because we're always talking about the kids. No, I think it is. It's funny because I think parents and, you know, the sharing is a huge problem, and we're always talking about but the kids, but it's the adults too. And I think all of us spend so much time talking about the kids, and this is why I wrote Shame Nation, because I wanted us to all start looking in the mirror, because it's all of us too, because we are the ones that are retweeting that cruelty that's being posted out there. We're the ones that are perpetrating the hate. Not all of us, Chris, not all of us, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see some hateful tweet from someone in politics, which is really pop right now, or sometimes you'll see a hateful tweet from a celebrity or something else, and you'll see it retweeted like 50 billion times. Yeah, and
they're adults. It's not from kids; it's from adults. And I really take issue with that. And when I wrote this book, initially I had several publishers coming at me to buy it. Most of them wanted me to take it in a kid direction, a teenage direction, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. It covers teens and adults. It's a genre for both. But I didn't want to focus on teens, because I'm like, you don't understand. These adults are using their keystrokes in the wrong way. They are the leaders. You know, they're supposed to be our role models. So if the adults would start looking at what they're doing, they'll start changing their ways. You know, we can still, even if you're not a caring person, hopefully you can turn it around when you start realizing how mean you're being to other people. I think when you read it and you start actually saying, oh my God, is that what it did to the other person? You know, maybe you'll realize I can change my ways. That's what I'm hoping the impact will have.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how we get out of this. The hate and meanness. You know, the people that pile on. You know, the XYZ said it, and we're really in a crisis situation. You know, I'm not going to say one politics is better than the other, but when we have a president that is being mean, vindictive, you know, saying very misogynist, racist stuff, you know, the comment about the comment referring to a menstrual cycle of Megyn Kelly during
that's
the
right. I forgot about that one. Oh,
and then he basically made that inference with the with Mika from Mika and Morning Joe. I am, you know, a liberal, not because I decided to pick a side. I just turned out my caring about other human beings is liberal. And I don't think all politics is right. I don't think one side owns the 100%, you know, franchise on right, truth, honesty, and whatever. But the amount of decency in having other people in this online forum where people just pile on, You know, I mean, I was just really just shocked at seeing the kids from the Florida shooting mocked and everything. And again, I don't want to point fingers. I think we all are a little bit bankrupt emotionally or intellectually within ourselves, and we've got to come to this thing. And maybe social media, between the narcissism, seeing people online, so we don't see them as human beings, we see them as maybe avatars, and you know, I mean, I there's sometimes where I've gotten in fights with people. I just keep looking at that avatar and I keep, you know, battling back at them and saying ugly things to them. I've done that in my past, and not realizing that there's a human being on the other side. There's someone's mom. There's someone's child.
That's right.
And they have feelings. And, you know, my dad used to do this. Excuse me. My dad used to do this interesting thing when people are mean to him. It doesn't really work too well on the internet, but he used to do this thing when people were being mean to him in real life. You know, he'd have someone come up and yell in his face. We worked in the contracting business, so, you know, sometimes emotions run high and people would have disagreements. And so, you know, sometimes on the job site, we'd have, you know, an argument between the subcontractor and contractors, you know, something would go on. And I remember my dad would, you know, somebody would be yelling at him, being viciously mean to him and having an argument. And he would reach over and put his hand on their shoulder as nicely as he could. And he'd be like, "What happened to you? What was it that made you this angry? What happened? Why are you being this way?" And he would do it with this, you know, inflection of love and seeking understanding. And it would just crack the person. They would just stop. And sometimes they start crying, and sometimes they say, "Well, you know, this is going on with me. I'm sorry, I'm lashing out." But it's kind of interesting that he was able to interject and interrupt these people's patterns of behavior of angriness. And of course, you can't do that on the internet. You can't reach over.
You did it with your trolls, sort of. You did it when you.
That's sort of the one. That's the only conversion I had, Sue. I failed like 100% of the time. The rest of the time, that was like the one.
You know, I'm going to tell you, when Monica went on Dr. Oz, and she promoted our book with Dr. Oz, and they attacked her really badly on the Facebook page, on the Dr. Oz Facebook page. And I took some of the advice that was in our 6 ways to respond to haters. And I took the fighting route, and I never do, because I've always, once you've been a victim of online shaming and you've been attacked, and I was attacked by so many trolls back then, I'm really, really shy online. I'm very reserved, I should say, and I'm really careful not to piss people off. And if I do, I'm so sorry. But I didn't this time, and they do. Poor Monica, she is attacked from left to right. I mean, she can't win. She can't live down 22 bless you, if she tried.
Yeah.
So on Dr. Oz's Facebook page, all these people are attacking her. And I went at it, and I was like, you know what? She is huge. Do people understand? She's a human being.
Yeah.
What happened 20 years ago? She was, first of all, she made a mistake. She was human. Number one, in my opinion, first of all, Chris, I'm going to tell you something. He was the married man. I don't care how you cut this. I'm not, yes, I of course I'm on Monica's side, but he was the married man. I don't care how you cut this. She was only, what, 21, 22 years old?
Yep.
Maybe she should have known better. It doesn't matter. Not only was he a married man, he was the president of the United States. Don't blame her.
I would disagree with you on one point. She should have known better. She was youthful, and we all make stupid mistakes in youth, especially me.
That's right. It doesn't matter.
It does take 2 to tango, but I will agree with you also that he was a married man. I get really sick and tired, especially being a single guy, of married guys being in my pool, because I've been single all my life. Being in my pool, I have to fight on them on Match.com, like half of the matches, married guys. And I'm really sick of them. It's like, if you're going to get married, go live your married life. And
go on Ashley Madison. Direct him over to Ashley Madison.
Yeah. And there is the other thing that happened to Monica is, you know, I mean, girls grow up, they look at rock stars. There was a bit of a power a power influence, power grab. I'm lost for the right word I'm looking for right now.
There was
But there was, she was blinded by power and the influence of a married man, and I've even known some women that they're more attractive to a married man, and because they can't get them or they want to get them, and they know that so there's a whole psychology to that. But yeah, I mean, she made a mistake when she was young. Certainly Bill Clinton has a lot of blame for that too. I mean, he should have known better. But it's one of those things where in all of our society we should know better. I don't think
the names that they call her, and I mean, the vile remarks that she still endures today is to me so unacceptable. If you don't like her, you don't agree with her, just move on. That's my opinion. I don't like a lot of people out there. I just move forward from it. Don't even comment on it.
Yeah, and I don't know why, there's a million people that have had an affair with a married man. The only difference in this is that he was the president, and it became a national sort of news item. But there's a million people in the world who've either dated or had an affair with a married man and had it gone badly. I think I've dated married women, and it's a thing where I mean, we need to let it go. I mean, the humanity of just going, hey, you know what? She was young. She was an impressionable girl. I think she was like 20 or 22 at the time. Geez, the stupid mistakes I made when I was that age. I've been making mistakes up until the time I'm 50. So I'm not gonna claim to be any smarter when it comes down to it these days. In fact, it seems like the longer I live, the more I realize I don't know, and I'm kind of more of a giant idiot. I mean, that's pretty much the paradigm I'm at 50.
But at the end of the day, he did get to move on with his life, and she was pretty paralyzed for a long time.
Yeah, there is a sort of tragedy in these sort of affairs where the woman does end up slighted and wearing the scarlet letter, if you will, from that, the story of the scarlet letter, where the woman ends up the thing. I mean, you even see it still in societies. We've gotten most of it out of our society, but maybe there is that tinge that's still there with, examples like Monica Lewinsky, where, we've pressed upon her a scarlet letter that she somehow has to wear for the rest of her life unfairly. And, so maybe there's a root of this that comes from our puritanical religious backgrounds of shaming and the scarlet letter, things of that nature. And we see it very deeply in the Islamic societies, where some of the extreme Islamic societies, I'm not saying they're all extreme, don't get me wrong there, folks, but some of the extreme, I think it's Shia law areas of Islam, they kill women who have affairs or whatever, and they don't blame the man. They don't blame the married guy. If a woman in their society has, an affair with a married guy, she's the one who's stoned to death, not the married guy. And that's really unfair. And there's a dynamic there we really have to look in our society about just the core of it, and of course religion, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly I've seen a real correlation with religion or religious past in our societies, everyone coming over from the pilgrims, where the woman is the shame one, where, Adam and Eve, I mean, you see it all through the Bible, but, Eve is always blamed for being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And since then, she's kind of trashed throughout some of these tomes of religion, and the woman is always treated with a second class. And so I think some of that is what goes into, issues like Monica Lewinsky and women being shamed and men move on, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think we're seeing some of the flipping of that maybe in the Me Too movement. And of course, we're moving more to an atheist sort of society. But there's some real deep cores that we're never treating the real issues. We're just treating the symptoms sometimes, and I'm not even sure we're doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she's doing fine. She's a real activist now for cyberbullying, and doing a lot of great things. So I mean, fine, everything's great now. But I'm just saying that was the first time I ever went to bat and went online to fight against those trolls.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in long time, trolls. So
yeah, it's just mean, and somehow we've got to learn to realize that we're all human beings again. Maybe it's because we're seeing the world through this phone that we're all looking into as we're walking throughout life. We're not looking at each other anymore in the eye. I went through a real battle with myself where I wasn't, I've recently read the Eckhart Tolle books about being in the power of now and Zen. And several years ago, my dogs are getting older. They were passing away, and I work from home. And so I was able to spend all my time with them, but I started to notice that I was gone with social media and my life. And they would be before me, sitting in front of me, and I'd be petting them, but I wouldn't be there. I'd be gone. I'd be looking at my social media, looking at my Twitter feed, looking at my Facebook posts. And I would be looking at them. I'd be petting them, but my brain would be someplace else. I would be just gone. And I started really struggling to get, like, I couldn't get to where I could see them and be with them and be in that moment with them. Even when I was petting them or interacting with them, or, they were cuddling beside me, I was, on my phone doing the thing. And maybe the dispersonalization, if that's the right word, of these phones that our world has turned into the phones. We go to concerts, and, you hear artists complain about this. No one enjoys the concert anymore. They're all just looking at their idiot phones and seeing the world through that lens of their plastic metal camera eye of the phones. And maybe that's what's...
Right. Or they're worried about videotaping it or getting it on video or to load it. Or I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with you. I couldn't.
And that's how we're wondering our self-worth. I mean, I saw it early on with iTunes, or with the big battles over which was the best phone. Of course, whether it's the Apple or the Google. But I started noticing that our self-esteems were managed by the quality of the phones we had, or we thought we had. Somebody would say, "Oh, you don't have the latest Apple iPhone. Oh, you're not a human being anymore." And I started seeing these people that were valuing the quality of their self-esteem based upon whether or not they had the latest phone. And you see this, we've talked about it on social media, FOMO, fear of missing out.
That's right.
People being so desperate to not miss out, to be in the in crowd, to be in the cool crowd, to have the right phone, to make the perfect social media post that gets the most likes. This narcissistic area that we've reached where we're just trying to constantly one-up each other, be better than each other, put up the best selfie, get the most likes, get the most followers on our Instagram,
You could have written my book. You could have written my book. I say one of the key ways to prevent shaming is to limit your sharing. I mean, that's, be conscious of what you're sharing. Basically, I mean, people overshare. It's just, you don't need to share every living, breathing moment. But like you said, I think we're living in this narcissistic world where people believe they need to share everything they're doing. And I'm not sure if you saw that one study, I think it was out of UCLA. People who overshare are less likely to receive empathy or help if they become harassed online. And the other one was from Harvard University, where humble braggers, which we all know who they are out there, that are constantly oversharing about their false, I call it fake book or falsehoods, they're considered less than genuine people. They're also to the point where some people consider them frauds. So, I mean, I think, again, like I said to you before, like you said, what are going to be the consequences of these people eventually? And I think slowly, the pendulum's going to change and sway over, whether they're losing jobs or at risk of not being able to get a job or whatever. These people are going to be, the transparency of these people that are oversharing is going to be that they're going to be losing friends. I'm going to tell you, like, over the Christmas holiday, I did a complete sweep out and unfriended, unfollowed so many people. And I know so many people over the political season unfriended, unfollowed so many people that were just, cruel. It didn't matter what side of the political fence you were on. I didn't care. I didn't want to see those cruel posts.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I'm hoping that you're right, that we're going to turn a positive corner. My biggest worry is, I've heard some people do some comparisons that our political climate and our society's climate in the dehumanization of others is so toxic. It's reflective or mirrored in the run up to Hitler's run in Germany.
And gave me chills.
Yeah. And it's the same sort of political environment that Hitler rose out of, and an autocrat. We're seeing that, of course, now. But the one thing I've always looked at with the extermination of the Jews in the Holocaust in Germany was how people went from a point of love and caring towards their fellow human being to the dehumanization of people, to where we were putting them into ovens and gas chambers and imprisoning them and taking away their things. Somewhere that society in Germany dehumanized each other to a point where they didn't care. And I remember as a child, or as a teenager, I saw the study that they did where they tried to replicate the dehumanization of a person in a torture situation. And I don't know if you remember this study, but what they did is they put a man in a room with shock cables attached to him. Now, it was all fake, it was staged. And then they brought in people just off the street, normal people, and they set them in front of a console, and they said, here's how this works. And, they had an authoritarian person that was over them to tell them, you must do this. And they were taught that if the person didn't answer the questions that the authoritarian answered, that their job was to turn a knob to give a jolt of shock to the person. The more answers they got wrong, the higher they would turn the jolt, to where it became incredibly painful, horrific. They would hear the actor on the other side that was staged screaming and please, please don't do it again. And it was an incredible lesson in the dehumanization and the extent to where we can be degraded in our morals and ethics, to where the person was on the other side was like, I have to do this. The person said, this is what we're supposed to do. I'm supposed to torture you. And they literally would go all the way most of the time to the highest level of shock that they could deliver to the people. And fortunately, the whole thing was faked. But what they did is they found that just about anybody can be turned into those sort of people that Hitler promoted and dehumanized. That you have to ask yourself, well, yeah, Hitler was an evil person, but who are the human beings, the guards in the prisons, the people who ran the prisons? How do we get to the point where we dehumanize the Jewish people, or anybody in this world that's happened through a lot of our atrocities of ugliness to each other?
And it's no different than saying, yes, Trump is sending out these ugly tweets, but who are these people that are agreeing with them?
Exactly.
Same thing.
And what does it come to? I mean, do we have to rise up as a society where we have a new civil war, where it's not the North and South, it's the Republicans, the Democrats, and we have to go to war?
Yeah,
and certainly,
when you compare it to something as horrific as what you're describing it as, it's scary, because we have almost half the country that agrees with those cruel tweets. I mean, there's
a lot of one side that doesn't think that people that are DACA, people that are immigrants, are valuable members of humanity. They're just throwaway. And we reach what's scary about throwaway human beings.
It's a high percentage. It's not even a low percentage. That's the scary part about it.
Yeah. Well, it's been so wonderful to have you on, Sue. I would love to have you on again and talk more about this, because I probably talk for hours and hours and hours. Give me your plugs so people can look up your book, download on Amazon, all that sort of good stuff.
Well, they can go to SueScheff.com. For all 3 books are on that one, or ShameNationBook.com also has more details about what's inside the book. And I'm at Sue Scheff on Twitter, and sue.scheff.author on Facebook.
Cool. Well, we certainly appreciate having you on. Everyone download the book, learn about it. Please teach your kids to be empathetic and care about other human beings. Watch what's going on in our politics, and realizing that your children are taking a page from the book and learning from some of our leaders that are very toxic right now. You can decide who those are, but maybe we need to teach our kids, hey, that sort of stuff is not cool. There is a living, breathing human being with feelings and pain and empathy, and we need to make the world a better place by being good to each other, because we're on a island, a little boat in the middle of the universe, and there's nobody but us here. And unless we really learn to get along, our species will go extinct. It's a wonder we haven't done that with nuclear war yet, is wiped out our species, but there's still time. So let's all try and get along better and give each other a hug instead of slinging crap at each other like a bunch of crazed monkeys. Thanks for tuning in. Yes, thank you very much, Sue. I really appreciate you coming by. Thanks to my audience for coming by. We certainly appreciate you guys. You're rock stars. Be sure to go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, subscribe to the show, hit that bell notification button, go to Google Play, go to iTunes, and please tell people and refer them to the show. I just got our report here. We've just got a huge new jump in downloads and listens. So please share the show. I certainly appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.